Before we get going, the commander cards that I was telling you about, look at the terrible glare there. You get to pick one of these cards, and there's 10 US cards, 10 British, and I think I can't remember how many there are with the Germans and Russians, because they got extra cards in these two little expansion packs. So they actually have a few more commanders, than the US and Britain. But you pick a card, and then you just place it on the commander section of the building board, and you use your experience cubes that you earn throughout your turns. Like this one takes 1 to unlock level 1. And then you'll need another 2 to unlock level 2, and then you can, this one has a free armored car that comes when you unlock that. And then it tells you what, any specifics that are unique to that unit. Level 3 here, 2 more. You improved repair. You can actually repair vehicles faster. And then here's a Sherman, on level 4 when you unlock your commander to level 4. For 2 manpower and 5 fuel, you can buy the upgraded Sherman tank. So that's just one of the things, and they have, like I said, each one is different and unique. And there's also one generic if you wanted everyone to play with the same commander, which might not be a bad idea for the first time you use commanders. That way everyone's on the same page, because some of these attributes are pretty interesting and powerful. So that's the commander card. You would pick that out in your setup, and like I said, it would go right into your building board there. And here is an overview of a round. And the game isn't defined by rounds, it's defined by victory points. So it can have as many or as few rounds as it takes to achieve that victory point. So the first part of the round is the maneuver phase, which actually is broken down into what they call 3 turns. Then there's the damage phase, and that's your attacks and your defending rolls, based off different things that we'll go through when we get to the damage phase. And then, of course, the supply phase. Thanks for the little jingle bells over there. Probably should have silenced my phone. So anyway, right now we're going to go through the maneuver phase and what that entails. So typically your spawn area would be along the edge of this map that's either near these arrow symbols, and they're labeled 1B and 1A, based off your side of the map. Depending on the mission booklet, your spawn might be on B, might be on A. These are also what they call the retreat points, where you can retreat to and heal your units, in the hexes adjacent to the 1B or the 1A. So you would take your units and place them on the hexes, where you, in your spawn, where you want to go. And since you have a resource point right here, you definitely want to have one within range of getting that on the first turn. Looking at anything else on here, I don't see any more that are within range, so that'll be the obvious target there as we go over there. So how this works, and before I get there, you can see if you had picked a commander, it just kind of slides right in there, and then you would mark these as the level of your commander as you progress across the chart there. But that's a different story. Back to maneuver phase, and what that entails is 3 turns. And you'll look on your building board at the victory position, how many victory points. Whoever has the fewest victory points gets to choose whether they want to go first or pass to the other team. So if it's a tie, like you say on this very first turn, you would go to your stockpile, and whoever has the fewest stockpile would go first. Well, you're tied on the first turn as well. So the first turn you're going to be rolling dice, unless the mission booklet gives you a specific, American team gets to go first, which means they would either choose or pass. So it doesn't really matter for this demonstration. But what we've got is, on the maneuver phase, you've got 3 turns. And it is 3 turns of 3 movements each. And these are considered command points. So you've got 3 command points to move. So the first, I would take 3 command points, and I would spend 2 to get into there. And I changed out that sandbag emplacement so I can get the unit in there. So I've spent 2 there. Well, that means I can use this move here to 1. So that is my 3 movement on the first turn. So now you would pass to the enemy, and they would spend their 3. Now it would come back to the US, and I don't want to leave that space. I've spent my 2 command points. You've got a maximum of 3 command points that can be used on each unit per turn. So that leaves 2 for this. So I can move the mortar team 2 forward, so that we're going to get up here, and you can't see it. Let me adjust it up. You can see the ammunition right here. So that'll be their 3. So they've spent all 3, 2 of them on this turn. So now they're done because they've spent 3, and they're done because I only want to spend 2. I don't want to leave that. I have to be there to capture that on the supply phase. The first part of the supply phase is capturing resource points and victory points. So then the enemy player would go, and that's pretty much going to be your first turn because you only have the 2 units. So that would be the end of the maneuver phase of round 1. Take all your cubes off. You would do your damage. You would collect your resources. So I would plant my flag, whether I was red or blue, whatever that team we chose to begin with. And then we'd spend. So we're going to spend. I'm rearranging these cubes for the next part. So we would spend, and we are going to get a Jeep just for the demonstration purposes here. And the Jeep itself comes with a speed die, and the speed die is an extra move. So let's look at what would be a round 2. And really, I could probably buy another infantry. Let me go get another infantry and just throw it on the board there. I didn't have one handy, so I'm going to just use the German one that was sitting over on the other table from the game. So that'll be a US infantry unit. So we were able to purchase 1 infantry unit and 1 Jeep. So on round 2, our movement phase, no one has got any victory points yet, so we're going to do the roll off of dice again, unless Germany didn't spend some of its resources to buy units. Maybe they only bought 1 unit, so they would have more resources in the stockpiles. So that moves on to US goes first again, and they choose to go first or second. Now, at this point, there's still no advantage to going first or second, so it's not that big a deal. It will be on round 3 when the units get close enough to maneuver into firing range. So, for the first part of the US turn, they're going to spend 2 for this unit here to go into the building. So that's 2 command points. Once you go into a building, you're done for the round. So they are done for the round. So that means we'll come over here. This mortar team can spend 1 movement point and move forward. Now we come back. The enemy moves theirs. Back to yours. You get 3 more to spend. Let's look at how that Jeep's going to move. So the Jeep itself, it can go 1, 2, 3. So that's the 3 it gets normal. And then it has this speed dice, and it can go 4. And then he would turn that to red. So that would be the end of the turn 2 for the US, because they'd moved, 1, 2, 3, can only move 3 a turn. The enemy would move their 3, Now the last 3 for the U.S., they're in a building, so they're done. We're going to move them into the munitions to capture that. So that is a 1. So we've moved 1. That leaves 2 left. So this infantry unit can go 1, 2. And now you've moved your full 9 command points on turn 2 because you have the units to do so. And that is pretty well, and then the enemy would move their last 3. And that is pretty much how maneuvering, the maneuver phase works. Really, it's kind of simple. You don't have to remember how many movements a unit gets. It's 3 max per unit per round. If you move into a building, you're done. Obviously, if you move on to a resource point, you want to stop and collect it. The only other difference that I say here would be on if we had a tank, you know, put this Sherman on here. The Sherman itself, say it wanted to move in this direction, you get 1 turn and 1 move forward for 1. But now if you want to turn and not go forward, but you say the enemy tank or anti-tank guns over here, but you want your front towards it, it just costs a 2nd point to turn that second. So you get 1 free turn per movement forward, and then it costs you 1 more command point to turn a 2nd time. So sometimes, yeah, you can't go as far because you want to get your tank aligned up. The other thing too is the tank, on all the tanks, they can either go forwards or backwards. They can't go like that without the turn, and you know, and then you're going, and then you can turn again. But if you have to turn that 2nd time, you know, that's an extra command point. Just a little minor thing. The other thing is there's some of the heavy tanks, they can't, if they're turning at all, they have to spend a point to turn. So like if they go forward, they don't get the free turn. So they would go forward for 1 and then turn for 1. Pretty easy, pretty simple. I mean, in every unit, they get 3 moves. Doesn't matter what it is. The only restriction is once you enter a building or a half track, because half tracks can carry infantry units. That's the end of that unit's turn, movement turn for the round. Now where this gets tricky with the 9 command points to move in your 3 turns within a round is when you have 6 or 7 units on the board. So that's when you got to start, you know, bringing your strategy in here, what you want to do to attack or defend or capture, you know, points, because you can't move everything. And so it gets a little more tricky as the game goes on, you know, and too, you know, more fun. So that is the maneuver phase. Pretty simple. It's 3 turns of spending 3 command points each turn, and it alternates with the enemy team. And when we were playing with the 4 players, you know, it was simple. We had 2 Germans versus 1 British and 1 Russian, or no, 1 US. So, you know, the British and US player would spend their 3, and then the 2 German players would spend their 3, and you know, and then vice versa. So pretty simple. That's the maneuver phase. Let's look at the damage phase.